if you could walk into any situation, a meeting, a problem, even a life decision, and instantly see the smartest way forward? No confusion, no hesitation, just clarity. What if I told you there's a secret toolkit hidden in plain sight, one that the world's best thinkers, leaders, and problem solvers have been using for centuries? Most people go through life reacting to problems, but the exceptional ones, they think differently. They have a mental map that shows them shortcuts no one else can see. Today, we're going to unlock those 30 rare tools of thinking, the same ones that separate the average from the exceptional. And trust me, once you hear them, you'll never see the world the same way again. Most people believe they're thinking clearly, but are they? Imagine you're driving through a thick fog. You can still move forward, but you can't see far ahead. You don't know what's coming, a sharp turn, a sudden drop, or maybe a dead end. That's what unclear thinking is like in life. You're moving, but you don't really know where you're going. And one wrong step can send you off course. Now, picture the fog slowly lifting, revealing the road ahead. You see the turns, the signs, even the shortcut that no one else noticed. That's what clear thinking gives you, the power to see what others can't. It's not about knowing everything. It's about seeing the truth in a world full of noise. We live in a time where we are constantly bombarded with information. Headlines screaming for attention. Social media pulling us in 100 directions. People giving advice they don't even follow themselves. The result? A mind cluttered with half-truths and assumptions. And here's the dangerous part. We make decisions in that fog thinking we're right, until reality proves us wrong. The most successful people in history, inventors, leaders, visionaries, all share one thing in common. They've trained themselves to think with clarity, to separate fact from opinion, and to focus on what truly matters. Clear thinking is like cleaning a dirty window. At first, you don't even realize how cloudy it is because you've gotten used to the blur. But once you wipe it clean, you're shocked at how bright and sharp the world looks. And when you think with that kind of clarity, life stops feeling like a guessing game. You make choices faster, with more confidence, and you can spot opportunities long before others even know they exist. Best part? Anyone can learn to think this way, but very few ever do. And as we move forward, you're about to discover exactly how to sharpen your mind so you can step ahead of 99% of people who are still lost in the fog. Have you ever wondered how some people solve problems that seem impossible for everyone else? They don't just think outside the box. They break the box apart and rebuild it from scratch. This is the secret of first principles thinking, a way of seeing the world that strips away assumptions and gets to the core truth of things. Imagine you're trying to build a flying machine in the 1400s. Everyone tells you birds have wings, so we must copy birds exactly. That's the assumption, and it traps you. But someone with first principles thinking doesn't just copy. They ask, what actually makes something fly? They break the problem down to physics, lift, drag, thrust, and suddenly, you're not building feathers, you're building engines. This is how Elon Musk reimagined rockets when the world told him they were too expensive. Instead of asking, why are rockets so costly, he asked, what are rockets made of? Then he priced the raw materials, aluminum, titanium, carbon fiber, and found they cost just a fraction of the final price. The problem wasn't the physics, it was the way people were thinking about rockets. By breaking it down to the first principles, he rebuilt the industry from the ground up. The truth is, most of us are trapped by invisible rules we never question. We follow how it's always been done, even when it no longer works. First principles thinking is like hitting a reset button for your brain. You take a problem, strip it to its bare bones, and rebuild your solution from the ground up, based on truth, not tradition. And once you start thinking this way, you realize how much of your life is built on borrowed ideas and old assumptions. The moment you break free from them, you start creating solutions nobody thought possible. In the next step, we'll explore another mental shift that will make you see challenges from an entirely different angle. And trust me, it's going to turn your usual way of thinking upside down. Sometimes the smartest way to solve a problem is to turn it upside down. Most people face challenges by asking, how can I succeed? But inversion flips the question, how can I fail? It sounds strange at first, almost negative, but this is exactly why it's so powerful. By looking at the worst-case scenarios, the mistakes that could destroy your plan, you can avoid them before they ever happen. Imagine you're trying to make a boat that never sinks. Most would focus on adding speed, better sails, or stronger materials. But someone thinking in reverse would ask, what causes boats to sink? Then they design to prevent those exact failures, and end up with something far more reliable than everyone else's. Charlie Munger, one of the greatest investors alive, famously says, "All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there." That's inversion in a sentence. Instead of only chasing success, he studies failure, bad investments, greed, poor judgment, and then works to eliminate them. The result? Decades of wealth, with far fewer disasters than those who only looked at the upside. Inversion is like walking into a dark maze with a flashlight. You're not guessing your way to the exit. You're scanning for traps, dead ends, and holes in the floor. And here's the twist. Once you know all the ways to fail, the path to success becomes much clearer. It's not about being pessimistic. It's about being prepared. The world is full of people who charge forward without thinking of what could go wrong, and most of them don't make it far. But you? With inversion, you're building your moves with safety nets, guardrails, and escape routes, all before you take the first step. And once you master this, you'll be ready for the next mental model, one that reveals why only a few small actions often produce the biggest results in life. What if I told you that in almost everything you do, a small fraction of your actions are creating almost all of your results, and the rest, they barely matter at all? This is the hidden power of the Pareto principle, the idea that 80% of your outcomes come from just 20% of your efforts. It's like discovering that in a massive fruit orchard, only a handful of trees are producing most of the harvest. The question is, do you know which trees they are in your own life? In business, it might mean that a few top customers bring in most of the revenue. In your studies, it could be that a small portion of your preparation leads to most of your improvement. And in your personal life, a few habits are likely creating almost all of your happiness, or your stress. But here's the problem. Most people spend their energy chasing the 80% that barely moves the needle, while ignoring the powerful 20% that could change everything. Think of your time and energy like sunlight. If you spread it thin over every plant in the garden, many will just wither. But if you focus that sunlight on the few that grow the fastest, you'll have a thriving garden in no time. The Pareto principle is about identifying your vital few, those actions, people, and decisions that matter most, and doubling down on them. And here's the real magic. Once you spot these high-impact areas, you can start removing the rest, freeing up your time, lowering stress, and multiplying results without working harder. But spotting the 20% isn't always easy. It requires the next mental shift. Because while the Pareto principle helps you focus on what matters most, the next principle will force you to think further into the future, to see the ripple effects of your choices before you make them. And once you do, you'll never look at decisions the same way again. Most people look at decisions the way they look at a stone dropped in a pond. They see the splash, the immediate effect, and that's it. But second-order thinking forces you to see the ripples, the waves, and even the long-term currents that move far beyond the splash. It's about asking, and then what? Over and over until you see the full picture. Imagine you're offered a high-paying job in a city far from your family. The first-order thought is simple: more money, better lifestyle. But second-order thinking asks, and then what? You might realize it means more hours, more stress, less time with loved ones. Maybe your health suffers, maybe your relationships fade. Suddenly, the shiny decision doesn't look so perfect. On the flip side, a choice that seems small now, like learning a new skill, might create a chain reaction that changes your life years later. History is full of people who made choices that looked brilliant at first, but were disasters later. Companies that rushed to release a product without testing, leaders who made short-term promises for quick approval, all victims of ignoring the second-order effects. Second-order thinking trains you to slow down, step back, and imagine the dominoes that will fall after your decision. It's not about predicting the future perfectly, but about seeing further than most people bother to look. The truth is, our lives aren't shaped by the first result of a choice. They're shaped by the chain reaction that follows. And once you learn to see those hidden consequences, you gain a quiet superpower. The ability to choose not just what feels right now, but what will still feel right years from now. And that brings us to the next mental shift, one that will teach you how to make better decisions even when the future feels like a game of chance. Life is full of uncertainty, yet most people make decisions as if the future is set in stone. Probabilistic thinking flips that mindset. It's about understanding that nothing is 100% guaranteed, and every choice comes with a range of possible outcomes, each with its own likelihood. It's like playing a game of cards. You don't know exactly which card you'll draw, but you can estimate the odds and play in a way that stacks the chances in your favor. Think about it. When you decide to start a business, you can't be sure it will succeed. But instead of thinking, it will work or it won't work, probabilistic thinking asks, what's the chance this will work? What's the chance it won't? And how can I tilt the odds toward success? This is how top investors, elite athletes, and great strategists think. They don't bet their future on blind faith. They calculate, prepare, and adjust based on the likelihood of each outcome. It's the difference between walking into a storm without an umbrella because it probably won't rain, versus checking the forecast, seeing there's a 60% chance of rain, and deciding to carry one just in case. One mindset leaves you drenched. The other keeps you dry. The real magic of probabilistic thinking is that it helps you stay calm when things don't go as planned. If you know there was only a 30% chance of success and you prepared for the 70% failure possibility, you're not blindsided, you're ready to adapt. It takes the fear out of uncertainty and turns life into a game you can actually strategize. And once you see the world this way, you'll understand the value of simplicity in decision-making, which is exactly what our next mental model is all about. Sometimes the smartest answer is also the simplest. But our minds love to complicate things. Occam's razor is a way of thinking that says, when faced with multiple explanations, the simplest one is usually the right one. It's not about being lazy or ignoring details. It's about cutting through the noise and focusing on what actually makes sense. Imagine you wake up to find your kitchen floor wet. You could come up with 100 theories. Maybe the roof leaked, maybe a water pipe exploded, maybe a secret underground spring just decided to rise up under your house. Or maybe you forgot to close the fridge door last night and the ice melted. Which one's more likely? The simplest answer that fits the facts. That's Occam's razor in action. This principle has been used for centuries by scientists, doctors, detectives, anyone who has to make decisions with limited information. It saves time, energy, and resources because you're not chasing wild, complicated theories when the truth is right in front of you. But here's the trap. Our brains often feel like a complicated answer must be smarter. We think if it's simple, it can't be right. That's how people get lost in overthinking, chasing endless possibilities that lead nowhere. Occam's razor isn't about ignoring complexity when it's truly needed. It's about starting simple and only adding complexity if the evidence demands it. And when you pair this with the next mental model, you'll see how dangerous it can be when our brains trick us into believing the wrong thing, even when the truth is simple and obvious. Our brains are powerful, but they're also sneaky. One of the biggest tricks your mind plays on you is called confirmation bias, the tendency to search for, remember, and believe only the information that proves you're already right. It feels comfortable, but it's a trap. Imagine you believe a certain diet is the healthiest. You go online, and instead of looking at all the research, you only click on the articles that agree with you. You ignore anything that says otherwise. Over time, your belief feels stronger, not because it's true, but because you've been feeding it only the evidence it wants. This is how people can live in completely different realities, even when they're looking at the same world. And it's not just about opinions. It affects investments, relationships, career choices, even who we trust. The scariest part? Most of the time, we don't even realize we're doing it. Cognitive traps like this act like invisible filters, bending reality to fit our expectations. They can make us blind to danger, deaf to better ideas, and resistant to change, even when change is exactly what we need. The first step to escaping these traps is awareness, catching yourself in the act. Ask, am I looking at the full picture or just the parts I like? It's uncomfortable because it means admitting you might be wrong. But here's the reward. The moment you step out of the comfort of confirmation bias, you start seeing opportunities and truths that most people miss. And when you combine that clarity with all the other mental models we've discussed, you become someone who isn't just reacting to the world, but truly understanding it. And that brings us to the final step: how to take these models and actually use them every single day to transform your decisions, your results, and your life. Knowing these mental models is powerful, but knowledge alone changes nothing. The real transformation happens when you use them every single day in the real world. Applying mental models in daily life is like putting on a new pair of glasses. Suddenly, you see things you never noticed before. Conversations feel different because you're not just hearing words. You're spotting biases, spotting assumptions, spotting the hidden logic, or the lack of it. Decisions feel lighter because you have tools to cut through confusion and see the smartest move clearly. It's in the little moments that the magic happens. You're in a meeting and someone proposes a big idea. Instead of reacting instantly, you pause, run it through second-order thinking, check it against the 80-20 rule, strip it to its first principles, and suddenly you see whether it's worth chasing or not. Or maybe you're facing a personal choice: moving to a new city, starting a side business, changing careers. You use probabilistic thinking to weigh the chances, Occam's razor to remove overcomplication, and inversion to spot potential failures before they happen. Over time, these mental models stop feeling like techniques and start becoming second nature. They become your default way of thinking, and that's when life starts to shift in your favor. You waste less time, make fewer mistakes, and start spotting opportunities long before others do. It's like having a quiet advantage in every room you walk into. And here's the truth: most people will never take the time to think this way. They'll keep stumbling forward in the fog, reacting instead of understanding. But not you, because now you have the tools to see clearly, act decisively, and think on a level most people never reach. We began this journey with a simple idea: that the way you think shapes the life you live. Along the way, you've seen how mental models can strip away the fog, reveal the truth, and give you an edge in a world full of noise. But here's the thing: this isn't the end of the story. These aren't just tools to keep on a shelf. They're meant to be used, tested, refined, and woven into the fabric of your everyday decisions. Because once you start thinking this way, you can't go back to living on autopilot. Imagine waking up tomorrow and facing the same problems you've always faced, but now they feel different. The obstacles aren't walls anymore, they're puzzles. The confusion isn't overwhelming anymore, it's a challenge you know how to untangle. You're not just reacting to life, you're shaping it with precision. That's what happens when you stop relying on chance and start relying on clarity. The truth is, most people will never take control of how they think. They'll keep running the same mental programs, making the same mistakes, and wondering why nothing changes. But you've already taken the first step they haven't. You've learned to see the world differently. And that difference is everything. Now, here's my challenge for you. Don't just close this video and move on. Pick one mental model, just one, and apply it today. Use it to make a decision, solve a problem, or look at something familiar with a fresh perspective. Then tomorrow, do it again. Because the more you practice, the sharper your thinking becomes, until the day comes when people look at you and wonder, how do you see things no one else can?